So I recently did a video on why women stay within unsatisfactory and often abusive relationships, and I wanted to talk more about that topic, so I decided to just make another video. This is more of a backseat one, as I found this Reddit post again asking why women seem to get together with and stay with men who are clearly not ready for a relationship at best and are absolutely awful at worst. There were two statements within the comments of that post, not necessarily answers, but more focusing on trying to get through to any woman who may be reading, that I want to focus on, and that I feel just really speaks for themselves and gives a clear message to anyone who needs to hear it. So I'll read the main post and then the comments and just leave you guys to digest and think about it all. The main post reads, "What is up with men in general? Obligatory not all men. But how are these man children getting married? How? Every single day I browse Reddit and I see an Am I the A-hole post about a woman upset that her partner will not clean up after himself, not get her gifts, have terrible sex, and just generally doesn't care about fulfilling her needs. I mean, I just saw a post about a woman upset that her husband doesn't get her the gifts she wants. Instead, gets her a plate and a crappy book and complains about her very reasonable gift list when confronted. Then I see in the comments about other women commiserating with her. And it's not just Reddit. I see jokes about useless husbands on TikTok and Instagram, and women in the comments just saying, ha ha. Then you have the women on the internet competing about how they don't need gifts or affection because they're so low maintenance, even though there's nothing wrong with being low maintenance. We should all strive to be high maintenance though. I'm not talking about materialistic things, but in affection and love. And it's not just on the internet. I know women in real life that settle for these men while they have absolutely no reason to be settling. And I understand relationships are hard and everyone does them differently. But just the level of disrespect in some people's relationships, and it's supposed to be normal. I'm just ranting, and I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but as women, we have so much to offer the world. And I don't know, I guess seeing that post when I woke up just upset me. And one response to this that I found really insightful read, "I'm in my 60s, and one positive trend I've seen over the years is women realizing they don't need a man. I had a coworker once who complained about her boyfriend being awful every day. Finally, I asked her why she didn't just break up with him and get somebody else. She said something like, there isn't anything better out there. I said that clearly wasn't true and mentioned several other employees who liked their boyfriends and whose boyfriends did nice things for them. She nodded about that, but when I said, besides not having a boyfriend would be better than having a bad one, she acted as if I committed some kind of terrible heresy. As near as I could tell, she felt that if a man doesn't want her, she's a failure. Being an old maid was like the worst fate that could befall her. She'd rather be married and miserable than grow old alone. That attitude seems to be less prevalent now than it was years ago, but it's certainly not gone away completely. And insofar as men are aware that it exists, they'll see no reason to improve themselves. I suspect that the decline in I have to have a man, any man, no matter how awful, is behind the rise of people like Andrew Tate. Because telling people you don't need to do better, it's not your fault, society has ruined everything, is always a popular thing to tell people who feel like they deserve more than they're getting. And a response under it reads, until my 30s, I kind of had this attitude, and then I found myself unexpectedly single and loving it. I love to tell other women how awesome being single can be, and I only date men who can add something to my great life. I know people, including my own family, make comments about me being single at this age behind my back, but I'd rather be actually happy day to day while people think I'm lonely and sad than to be miserable day to day while people think I'm happy." The second insightful comment saying, "As a lesbian, I'm so frustrated by 99% of my straight women friends and the treatment they accept. Even the most feminist, well-educated friends I have, some of whom work in human rights or domestic violence, have accepted partners back who cheated or hit them. Honestly, my perspective as an outsider to straight womanhood is that too many straight women don't actually do the work of not centering men in their lives. You can be as feminist on paper as you like, but if you're constantly trying to placate men, meet men's expectations, figure out ways to fix them, and determine all of your worth from them and their presence in your life, you're going to end up accepting less just because you haven't accepted that you're worth more than the validation men give you, or the sense of, I'm living the life I'm supposed to, right? That not being single gets you. Get yourself to a space where you sincerely do not need men for the most part. Not to make you feel good about yourself, not to help you with tasks you haven't taught yourself because you've been taught to rely on men. Become completely self-sufficient in the sense that you're in a space where you only allow men in your life who enrich it. Are completely non-misogynist and don't settle for less for the validation validation or sex. I'm lucky in that I'm not attracted to men, nor have male siblings, nor a present father. So men are really a non-factor for me, which means the men I love in my life are very much handpicked to be there. You don't have to be gay to have those standards. You need to have self-worth. My life is almost entirely devoid of toxic masculinity, other than the random and casual encounters, for example at work or on the street, because I don't allow men in my orbit at all who are toxic. I don't try to fix them. I don't give a crap about them. You need to stop trying to be a mother to your partners or ask permission from them to be treated equally. If they don't give that to you from day one without question, put him in the bin. If he's a conservative, put him in the bin. Sorry, but he fundamentally hates you. If he can't do his laundry, chores, cook, clean, put him in the bin. And a response to this saying, this is really well thought out. I appreciate your observations as an outsider to traditional straight marriage. I think most of us straight women don't have the chance to step aside and look objectively at our lives, so we just enter into these relationships or marriages assuming they're the only options. Unfortunately, our society is structured in such a way that it's easy to get stuck once we enter into these unions. Cultural expectations for employment, childcare, and general social behaviors can be extremely subtle. It's sometimes easier to retreat into traditional gender roles than to face the misogyny thrown at us when we challenge these roles. It's odd that there's a running joke in our world about men being trapped into marriage, but the reality is women are the ones who are usually trapped, whether financially, socially, and out of concern for children. Not to mention the stigma of divorce continues to have. Shame is a powerful social weapon. Your advice to stop being a mother to our partners is the best advice I've heard in a long time. And I think young women entering into these relationships with men really need to listen to this. We aren't in charge of our partner's well-being, mental health, etc. The biggest mistake I've made in my 14-year marriage is trying to micromanage my husband into the person I want him to be. It's exhausting and useless. So I'll leave you all here to just absorb what you've just heard and think more about the topic of decentering men in general, both in terms of preventing abusive, toxic relationships, as well as just finding self-fulfillment and peace in life without depending on another person or status or title. Please don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. I also want to end with a funny comment within the thread that I found humorous. Just something more to think on. Oh, for sure. I was at a training program for my job last week that involved us discussing dynamics between men and women in relationships. At one point, I started complaining about women who laugh off their husband's man-child antics and weaponize their incompetence. As old men, you know how they are, they're useless. I said, these women are being played and they think it's endearing. It drives me nuts. Hold your husbands accountable. Before realizing the mood of the room had turned tense. I remembered I was surrounded by older married women who almost definitely did that sort of stuff, and I undoubtedly just called them marks to their faces. Whoops. Hopefully they give it some thought.